Hello, and welcome to episode 120 of Design Curious Podcast. I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. And welcome to the new year, 2025. We're here. We made it. I hope you had wonderful holiday season, some time off, like I did. I definitely enjoyed spending time with my family. And hopefully you took some time to reflect, set some goals and intention around the new year, and see where you want to be a year from now, and set out to make those things happen for you. Today, I have a great interview with Chris Howell of SPX Fit. He is a great guest to have this first week of the year because he is a home gym designer. So let me tell you a little bit more about Chris. Chris Howell from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania is a former Division I lacrosse player from Hofstra University who transitioned from the field into Wall Street trader. Chris is the founder and owner of SPX Gym Design, a company that has been transforming spaces since 2017. SPX Gym Design fuses interior design with custom gym equipment, creating bespoke wellness environments for high-end homes of NFL athletes and boardroom executives. Chris has collaborated with prestigious brands such as Soho House Gyms, One Hotel Gurney Resorts, Proper Hotels, and C4 Energy. His innovative approach to gym and wellness design has positioned SPX Gym Design as a leader in the industry. Currently based in Jupiter, Florida, Chris continues to revolutionize the fitness and wellness landscape with his unique vision and expertise. I really enjoyed talking with him, and especially about this subject. I have done a few home gyms for my clients, and so I had some hands-on experience and some definitely specific questions for him. So tune in and let's talk about home gym and home fitness. You're now listening to Design Curious, a place where you, creative one, are here to learn about what it really is like to be an interior designer. And I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. If you're worried about how to succeed in a creative career, if you're ready to learn your next steps to become an interior designer, and if you want the satisfaction of doing something you love every day, you are in the right place. Grab a coffee, a notebook, and let's dig into today's episode. Hi, Chris. Welcome to Design Curious Podcast. Great to have you here today.
Thanks, Rebecca. Excited to be here.
Yeah. And I am very interested to hear about what you do. It's different from anyone we've talked to before. So I think our audience will also be interested. And a perfect topic to start off the new year. So you own and are founder of SPX Design, Gym Design. And tell me how you got into that field.
Yeah, sure. I kind of fell into it. I graduated at Hofstra University with philosophy and economics. So I didn't actually have any professional training in, design or let alone gym design.
Yep.
I went to work on Wall Street for a few years and I left that and became a personal trainer, as well as doing some cold calling sales. I was figuring out what my purpose was and what I wanted to do, and I was struggling with it. Eventually, I was able to get looped in with this hospitality group, mainly coming up with a group fitness concept for their hotels.
Oh, okay.
And during that, I was kind of started to get isolated by some of the architects asking about treadmills and dumbbells and this and that. And that's when it was the catalyst for me. I totally fell in love with product design, development, the manufacturing, how it's getting made, all of that. And then fusing that with the design intention from the interior designers at this hospitality group. So as I did that for about 3.5 years, and we worked on gym and wellness facilities for hotels across the US, UK, Europe, and even in Mumbai in India. So we would go and help open up these places and set up the install. And it was an amazing experience, and it definitely catapulted into kind of what I'm doing today. So after that, I just kind of was doing some odd job consulting around health and wellness. It wasn't specifically in gym design just yet. And then I went back to my roots and being like, I really like doing this, especially for hotels, and then ended up being higher end homes. And then it ended up being multifamily amenities, boutique facilities. Yeah, we do gym and wellness design essentially now. So that's kind of how it started. So it definitely was by accident, but I was always following what I really wanted to do. Even though I didn't know what it was, I knew it was within the fitness space.
Mm.
And then once I was asked about some of those products, like all of a sudden, a couple hours pass and I'm just perusing the internet, looking for different things. I'm like, this is fun. And
Yeah.
that was where it kicked off for me. So
Okay. So you mentioned that when these architects were asking you about specific product to put into these gyms, that you were working on product design. What kind of products were you designing for?
yeah. So if you think of, say, someone's doing a ton of DD on 8,000 square foot space and they're spending all this time and money and all these materials and finishes. And then an equipment distributor comes in and is like, hey, we're going to do black equipment. That's all we sell.
Hmm.
And your space is just not designed to have a bunch of black in it.
Okay.
So that's where I would come in and basically figure out how to match your design intent and aesthetic. So if it was ended up being this like light wood, natural tones, I would come out and look to go and get a more, maybe say like a terracotta type dumbbell done
Hmm.
for you.
Okay.
And so that would just like totally look like there was total intention across the board from the interior and then the equipment as well. So we do some like custom fabrication for clients that want something super unique or bespoke, whether it's a logo or fonts or anything like that. There are some vendors that will do the customization, and I just started to get super picky.
Mm.
And that's where I ended up spending some more time doing that as well.
So yeah, what an interesting path into it. You eventually found what you loved doing. The hospitality side of it is really interesting. I think that some of our listeners do hospitality design. Most of it do residential.
Mhm.
And so I'm also a residential designer. I think about those applications. And so the higher end luxury, are you talking about maybe professional athletes that are doing this, or is this more people's home gyms?
Yeah, both. It could be from just someone that wants the convenience of having it in their home. It could be the off-season home of an athlete that's like, hey, I just want some pieces that I have at the facility at my house,
Hmm.
whether it's a sauna or some pieces of equipment and things like that. What we find in all of our clients is that they care about it being done seamless,
Hmm.
having a white glove, very high end customer service experience, and
Yeah.
as well as having a great feeling. Just in any type of interior design, it's when you enter the room, like you want to set the tone and the intention of the room. It's like this room is meant to relax and put you into a like more of a parasympathetic state, where the gym might be looking to do the opposite. It's like, all right,
Hmm.
great, we're going to do some work here. Or it's an inspiring space where you're like, I just love being in here. So we find all of our clients like have that in their mind. It was like not just a gym, but they want to have that experience. So we really lean on that hospitality experience of ours. So think about
Hmm.
the customer journey, because sometimes the gym can be intimidating. It can be not as welcoming.
Hmm.
So we try to think about every step from someone walks in, like where are they warming up, where are they stretching, not just like walking over to a treadmill and trying to figure out your workout then, like having some direction. So yeah, we find from business folks, creatives to athletes to celebrities, things like that, that are all kind of interested in having that convenience and that experience at their home.
So where is a good spot for you to come in? Say there's a new build and you're working with maybe architect and an interior designer on the footprint for this home wellness space. I'm sure it could be really large, but how if they're only confined to maybe like 12 by 12 or 16
Yeah.
by 16 room, do you have recommendations at that? Do you like come in at that point and say we need more of a linear space or a square space or based on the equipment that you're bringing in?
Rebecca, you're describing like my dream timeline, right? Being like, hey, we're going to go start building this house. What shape should we do for the gym? Like that,
Yeah.
of course, that would be ideal.
Yeah.
Because there are some things that I don't think that are taken into consideration before. So for example, like power, if
Mm.
someone wants to put a treadmill that ends up being on most of the times on a dedicated circuit, if like on a higher end treadmill. So then they don't want to just plug it in the wall and the wires, so then it has to go on the floor, and then you're like trenching around concrete and yada, yada.
Yeah.
It's not really. So then the client's like upset, being like, I want to have more functional space. It's like, this is your power right here. There's not much we can do. So that's where it kind of stinks, where we can't really have any flexibility at that point because we just weren't involved. So ideally, it would be as early as possible to just, even if hey, we just need a couple insights, and then there's obviously a lull and everything. There's like, well, it's got to get built, and then they're going to need you again. So even if it's that early, just to get a sense of like, hey, this is what's important to the client, so let's design around this. But yeah, so we've been brought in at all parts of it, even leading up to the opening, where everything's a scramble, post-opening, trying to make some adjustments, and everywhere in between.
Yeah. Chris, I'm going to pick your brain a little more. Just thinking about, as a designer, if I were to be working with you, and kind of based on some past projects that I've worked on. So first of all, the flooring that goes into a home wellness space, sometimes, I mean, you would be able to source that, right? So are you looking at like rubber matting, or what is your favorite flooring for this type of space?
Yeah, I think, let me start with maybe the pain point that I think a lot of people think is just like boring black rubber flooring or puzzle tile piece flooring. Yeah, it's not very exciting. So we first started off showing some clients, like they just want that. They're like, no, I want a clean look. So we typically do a lot of rolled rubber for larger spaces. It just seems to be more cost effective. It looks more seamless. But in those smaller spaces that you're talking about, sometimes you would definitely want to get more of that tile base. And sometimes we have done like some of those like the puzzle piece looking things, but it's actually out of rubber. So there's no foam. That's where that cheapness kind of feels, where you like step on it and you sink a little bit. So you're still getting that density of the rubber, but we like to use tiles that have like beveled edges.
Okay.
So it's actually like underneath it has a connector underneath. So you're actually not seeing where it's connecting. So it actually looks like a nice tile. And then we'll go into different colors as far as like having a base of, say, like gray or like an espresso or more of like brown tones. And then we'll move into like cork as well. And that'll be more of a sustainable option for clients. And then finally, if there's like kind of more performance LVP that we could try to use too, if they're really like, I just don't want the gym flooring look, but we want to ensure that it has durability and you're not just feeling like concrete under your feet either. So that's also the fact. So we typically spec like anywhere from 3/8 thickness to 1/2 inch, depending on the user, like a 1/2 inch being more like heavier lifting, 3/8 being more like spin bike and a couple weights and things like that. And then you're dealing with a ton of acoustic issues too, if depending on where you're at. But that's probably the basic foundations of the process we'll take through the client. And I prefer the rolled rubber. I think a really light gray really looks nice, especially most gym equipment does tend to be black. So having black flooring and black equipment, and then a client starts being like, I want black walls. You're like, oh man, it's getting dark in here quick.
It's a cave.
Exactly. I like to think about things like that.
Yeah. What about ventilation? Is there any extra thought that needs to go into that?
Yeah. Usually if it's like within the home, you usually have that already solved. If it's like in a new addition, typically people want like light coming into it as well. So if there is a window, you have that. And then fans, like people usually are thinking like if you have a higher ceiling, like they're trying to do like a larger fan. Overall, you just definitely want to have some HVAC access into there, because if depending on the climate that you're in, like in Florida or Austin, Texas, if you're planning on doing a garage gym in Austin, Texas, it's going to get hot for a majority of the year. So probably wouldn't make a ton of sense to have air conditioning there if you're like going to open the garage, but having large, like there are some industrial fans that look pretty nice that you can incorporate into it and hide it within equipment, things like that. So we've done that before too.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about having this home gym upstairs? Is there any special consideration for that?
Yeah. I think one is thinking about when the house that was built. and considering moving into a second floor, sometimes older homes is just not the safest option.
Mm.
And then it'll come up with the user, like what they intend to do, the client intentions. If they're trying to deadlift like 400 pounds, I don't know if that's the right place to do it. There are a couple gyms that we've done that, again, like maybe more like light usage, but we really recommend maybe a newer home that has the standards that they apply to.
Mm.
And then it's going to come into the acoustic aspect of it. So even if you're on the treadmill in that space and say you have a baby or something or someone's sleeping, they're going to hear it. It's going to
Yeah.
travel up and down the walls. And there's just getting thicker rubber does not solve that
Okay.
either. So that's also people are like, oh, I'll just get it. That, no, it's going to chase everywhere. It's going to vibrate throughout everywhere. So yeah, so I would look at, if you have an unused room on the ground floor, then I would look at like maybe a garage or a basement. But mainly I find is obviously you want the open area to curate your gym,
Mhm.
but then the ceiling height
Mm.
is a huge aspect. So that's something that we'll work with designers and architects as well. Sometimes you just can't dig any further, or they've already come up and be like, hey, this is where we had to like drop a ceiling, or there's
Mm.
mechanical or whatever. Mm. And the ceiling height ends up being 8 feet, and that's pretty limiting for the client. And then other times it's, you have a great architect that's, oh no, we already anticipated, we opened up the ceiling and it's a 10 feet. You have 10 feet. Yeah, that's perfect. That's
Yeah.
amazing. So, but yeah, that's how we think about it.
Yeah. So what about adjacent wellness features like
Mm.
a sauna, a spa, or like steam room or cold plunge or things like that? Do you deal with that as well?
Yes, super popular right now.
Yeah.
I'd imagine a lot of people ask about that. They ask about recommendations. They ask about like how to get it done seamlessly, because there is a lot more work to be done there, especially for the sauna, if it's going to be indoor, like in your home. So if you have a
Mhm.
closet, and there's a lot of work to be done as far as ventilation,
Mhm.
power requirements. And then if you want to do it out of the home, then you're bringing power to wherever you're going to decide to put this on, and then the foundation that it's going to sit on as well. So yeah, we do tackle a lot of those things, which are pretty fun because one, you're curating this whole wellness thing for your clients,
Mm.
where it's like, hey, they're super focused on the gym and what equipment they want, and then you're quickly pivoting to this way more relaxed state, and then sometimes they'll describe references of, oh, when I was at this spa, I liked XYZ. So then we like try to lace those experiences in so they feel familiar
Mm.
to them, but also introducing something that feels unique to them, to that client as well. We see a ton of saunas and cold plunge requests.
Okay.
Not as many steam rooms. I would say steam is, there's definitely a user base for it. We
Mm.
just find that there's like way more marketing and this on that. So when I say sauna, I'm talking about like dry saunas and
Yeah.
traditional saunas.
Mhm.
The infrared saunas are more like plug and play. There's not a lot of
Mhm.
thought to it. And there's a user base that prefers that as well.
Mhm. Okay. So, Chris, how do you work with designers typically then? Or like, we talked about like you ideally could get in there early, but if you can't, then how do you like to collaborate with the other professionals on the job?
Yeah. Well, especially if they've done a ton of work, I'm definitely not looking to undo that work. Uh, if there is maybe a conflict of wall light or a pennant light that's dropping for some reason, or the flooring spec that they've selected, typically I find like when it has to do with the walls, like the 4 walls, they're super open to it. Well, this is what I just had and I wasn't sure. So I'm glad, do you have other
Mhm.
options? And then that's when I can like, that's really fun because they start pushing me. Like, I don't want to put black. Okay, well, here's some other options.
Yeah.
And then they end up being like, oh, can we do the cork, or what's this or that? And so that's where it becomes very fun and collaborative, because I'm not looking to take over at all. I'm
Yeah.
looking to just kind of like, hey, I saw this, but this is out there. Oh, I didn't
Mhm.
know. Okay, cool. So that ends up being very fun. And I'm not looking to like be like, oh, let's change the paint colors and let's change the lighting temperatures, unless it's like a dark room. And I don't, unless it's like something odd. I'm like,
Yeah.
why are you putting like blue lights in here?
Yeah.
And then like, I don't know. But yeah, so we collaborate with them where we're just looking to come in as a specialist. If you're thinking of if they're doing the interior design of the kitchen, like
Mhm.
we can show them more faucets
Mhm.
because if we're the kitchen designer, that's all we do. So that's how we take the gym design. It's like, hey, we can show a couple things if you're interested in that. Otherwise, we're going to look to match some of your equipment with what your design aesthetic is that the client loves.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's typically how we'll collaborate. It's totally up to that designer. They can be as involved or not involved in that process.
Mhm.
It's really fun.
And I'm sure you just work directly with the clients a lot of times. They might just not even be doing a remodel, but they're all of a sudden they're like, "I need a home gym."
Yes.
So,
Yeah. For
what
homeowners,
what's that process like? How do you take them through?
we try to make it as fun, the most fun parts as
Mhm.
possible. We present that to them. So whether it's like them selecting the layout and the main pieces, we're not like making them decide on like resistance bands
Mm.
or things like that. That's like when you buy a car, like you're including the radio. We're like, well, do you want to? Yeah, of course I want the CD player or whatever. But for the upholstery and the exterior color of the car, we want to bring them along that journey because
Yeah.
we think that's quite fun for them. And then they're like, yeah, this is where it'll become interesting with the client and the interior designer on the project, where they'll be like, cool, I just want to, yeah, we'll store those bands and all that over there. So then it becomes, we'll go to the interior person and we'll say, hey, like maybe we could do like a millwork storage
Mm.
for this. And
Mhm.
we'll actually draw an elevation for them and with the size of things, and then they can plug it into theirs
Okay.
and they can design it the way that they want, knowing like where everything's going to go, the size of it. And then instead of us just being like, here's a black steel rack and it's going to hold all this stuff, we can actually work together to curate something that's like way more bespoke and a little bit more intentful. So
Mhm.
that's where those kind of intersections are pretty fun. But yeah, working with the client on that is pretty great. So we'll work through the layout, the equipment selection, and then we end up taking on like the procurement and the warehousing and again, that white glove experience. So when the home is done and we work with the interior designer on like when they want us to come and install it, we'll go do it. And that's usually a 1 to 2 day thing. And then we'll present it to the client and
Mhm.
it's over.
So, since you have experience as a personal trainer, do you like, are there people who come to you and are like, I want a home gym, but I don't know what I want in there? So then do you like work with them to figure out the best machines that they should have, or just give them a general sampling of equipment, or do you prescribe a type of workout with them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Typically, uh, they'll come with a general thought based on their own experience. So whether they go to like an Equinox or a Lifetime, it's pretty funny because they'll describe equipment like this one and they'll make a motion. And
Yeah.
then I'm there watching them. I'm like, oh, is it the cable? And they're like, yeah, the cables. Okay. Then I'm like, okay, so there's a bunch of cables. Does it
Yeah.
look like this or that? So once we're able to dial it in, and we'll do a lot of discovery with them too.
Hmm.
So it'll be like, how many people are going to use the gym? And it'll be like me and my wife. And then it'll be okay. And then sometimes my kids, how old are your kids? What do they do? And what do they like to do? Oh, we have one. He's an ultra marathoner. Okay. So I'm in my head, I'm like thinking, I'm already pre-selecting products for that person.
Okay. Yeah.
And then it's like my wife, she likes doing Pilates, but I like doing more strength equipment. So now I have this ultra marathoner, I have this Pilates user, I have this person that seems to do a lot of different strength pieces.
Hmm.
So then now I'm trying to fit this all in a space
Yeah.
and hit a budget as well.
Mm.
And then also thinking about the design aesthetic,
Right.
right? So then if that ultra marathon son is going to be there often, then I might recommend a treadmill that's going to be a little bit more durable and
Hmm.
more like a better quality than maybe just someone that's going to run a couple miles a week versus 50.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the same thing for the reformer, right? How is that person going to be doing more, what would be called a traditional Cadillac, or is it more of like, it kind of goes down this weave of questions and then answers. And then
Yeah.
if it does come into being like, I have a shoulder injury. So I'm not going to put like a shoulder machine, like a shoulder press for this person because he already has like irritation there. But there
Yeah.
might be some other things that we can do that he would like. So we are kind of like trying to serve what they want. Because I'm also not trying to jam stuff down their throat when I
Right.
think they'd want. So again, I'm trying to blend what they want and then maybe showing them a few things that based on what they've told me, they might find interesting or
Hmm.
something that we can save a square footage by doing like a 2-in-1 piece. So like something that could do pull downs and rows instead
Mm,
of doing a pull down machine next to a one that does row.
mm,
So we'll try to find opportunities like that to save square feet and be able to do that.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. How complete is the wellness piece part of it? Like, do you ever get asked about chromotherapy or aromatherapy and all the other senses that kind of go into wellness?
Yeah. The aromatherapy, both of those, we don't have a ton of people asking about.
Mm-hmm.
Those are usually like things that we're like, oh, you can have a eucalyptus aroma experience in the sauna, or we could do like an experience shower
Mm.
where you have the chromotherapy and there's actually where you can like select sounds as well. So
Oh,
you can
yeah.
like have like
Mm-hmm.
waves breaking or thunderstorm, and then the water and the lights mimic
Mm-hmm.
that environment. This is pretty neat. But yeah, it's basically designed from scratch based on what that person wants. Sometimes it'll be, hey, I want a treatment room and I want a sauna and I want a plunge.
Mm-hmm.
And then it will start like exploring different design options from the wood to speakers to the heater aesthetic, like what it looks like in there. Same with the plunge, like even down to like how fast do you want the water circulating, because that'll
Mm-hmm.
affect how cold it feels as well. But we typically will stay in our lane of what kind of like science is backing. So
Yeah,
we really won't deviate and be like, well, we read this article about this type of therapy and we want to put it in your
sure.
house.
Yeah.
And we'll also mention it for infrared saunas versus dry sauna. If someone's like on the fence of it,
Mm,
there's a lot of research on just dry saunas.
yeah.
So if you are looking for like a proven rock solid benefit, like that's where we would kind of push people. But
Mm-hmm.
if for some reason, like people are like, oh, I just want the infrared sauna. Actually, a valid reason would be like, I'm really heat sensitive.
Oh, yeah.
So an infrared sauna, I can spend more time. That's totally valid. So we tend to explore those things as well, but we really try to stay on par with what's actually going to have some backing to it as well.
Mm-hmm. And then what would be some common mistakes that you're typically seeing if you come into maybe fix a home gym or even
Yeah.
in hospitality spaces? What are some common mistakes that are made?
I would say from the commercial standpoint, it's like not putting yourself in the shoes of the person entering the gym. Like I said, you have so many different levels of experience using a hotel amenity or a multifamily amenity being the gym, that when they enter for the first time, it can dictate the experience on their compliance and when they come back.
Mhm.
So if you walk in and you're just looking around, like, where do I go? It's not a great thing. So sometimes when you're looking at the AutoCAD plan, you like lose perspective of that. You're like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
let's just jam all this stuff in here. So like we always incorporate like a stretch area or somewhere that's like a warm up, cool down area, not just yoga mat, but like we'll actually delineate it with a different flooring finish
Mm.
sometimes. And
Nice.
it'll be like a inlaid with say the rubber, and it'll be less dense. So it almost will feel like, hey, I could sit down on this and foam roll or stretch. And then
Mhm.
that way for someone that's new, they just know that I'm going to start here.
Yeah.
So we find that being like probably one thing that could improve those commercial gyms. And then for homes, like the ceiling height happens all the
Okay.
time. That's
Okay.
also, it's just like and I totally understand it. You're basically dictating the ceiling height throughout the house. And then you're like, oh, this is the gym. And then it just loses space, especially if there's an issue with like, we find like air conditioning and then we lose ceiling height, or if it's underground, the ground digging in the basement. That's always like the number one question we ask. Cause if it's around below 8 feet, like we're gonna end up doing a lot of custom work
Mm.
for the client to fit it in there.
Yeah, because some of the machine like even treadmills on an incline or stair machine or things like that get you really high up close to that 8-foot ceiling.
Exactly. Stair climber in that scenario wouldn't be an option.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. So I've seen people cut out pieces of their ceiling so that they can stick their head into the
No.
rafters.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
it's pretty wild. And then I think those are probably the main things. And then the flooring, you just people, it, we said this all the time. Like I got it from a guy I actually watching on YouTube, but he says, buy once, cry once. And
Mm.
tell clients like that all the time when you're thinking about flooring, because for some reason, like people always skip flooring. Maybe they don't think about it in their initial budget. A little bit costly, but if you buy the Amazon stuff or it's just not gonna, and you spend all this money on equipment, it just doesn't make sense. You want to protect your foundation. If you're dropping weights, you just want to be safe with it. So
Yeah.
that's also like something we say all the time is, hey, listen, I know you don't like this price. This is, unless you can find something cheaper, but this is what we're finding is this is quality. This is going to be good. This is going to last a long time. Let's just bite the bullet and do this right the first time. Because we find people do that and then they end up replacing it and it's just not great. So
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Wow. So much great information, Chris. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you want to share with our listeners before we wrap up today?
I think if anyone is on the edge of considering a home gym, and I think the convenience factor is just, I have a home gym. It's not as nice as like my clients' gyms, but we recently had a son. And I mean, if I didn't have this home gym, there's such a premium for me to have that right now, to be honest. Just having a space to get away for 30 minutes versus driving the gym. And then it just becomes big.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then for clients, I think it's a great value add for any designer to call out a couple of these ceiling heights and flooring specs. And I think it makes it seem very professional across it. If you need help, don't be afraid to reach out. Like for me, interior design, if I need help, I reach out to interior designer. Like, I don't pretend to be this small interior designer if we're doing locker rooms and things like that. I know how to do the lockers, but sometimes I'm like, oh, I need support here. So we have 2 interior designers that help and do that part of our process as well.
Okay. Great.
So,
Well,
yeah.
where can people find you if they have questions and want to reach out?
Yeah, our website is spxfit.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at Chris Howell 16. So Chris Howell 16. But yeah, you can just reach out, and that's how we get a majority of our work. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on. And I think it's a perfect topic to start the new year, like I said, and then we'll going to go think about our own home gym situation.
Exactly.
Maybe give you a call.
That's perfect. Perfect.
Oh,
thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. So a really timely and fun episode talking with Chris about designing a home gym. Maybe you got some ideas about having one in your own house. We have one in our garage. Instead of parking our cars, we've got a home gym. It is really nice to have that on site. And I know a lot of clients appreciate that too. It's definitely something you want to bring up to clients when you are talking to them about the needs of their home, aging in place, and things like that. A home gym can really be a great asset to have, as well as be a great resale feature for the home. So a lot of things to think about there. Hopefully you've set your intentions around home fitness or about just having better wellness in 2025. And as you're going to hear next week, I'm going to get into the topic of accountability, another timely topic this time of year. But as I had mentioned last year, that I am going to be launching a new class for those who are thinking about getting into my design mentor, but also want to launch their own business this year. I've designed Launch Your Business Bootcamp, and you can get on the wait list right now and get some more information about that. The link is in the show notes. Go ahead and check that out. And I'm going to talk more about it next week, but this is for people who have been wanting to start their business, but really would love to have someone there along the way to help them fill out the forms, get everything official and set up. And we're going to take you through that in 2 months, and then you'll be able to start your business this year. Make it happen. All right, that's all. There's many great links in the show notes, so check that out. Go ahead and leave me a review and rating. I'd love to hear your feedback. And message me or DM on Instagram. I'd love to hear from you. Have a great week, and until next week, stay creative. Thanks for listening. If you love this episode, please leave a rating and a review. This helps me reach other curious creatives like you. If you have a topic request or would like to contact me, simply head over to my website, rwarddesign.com, or email me at podcast@rwarddesign.com.